Welcome to Module 4, Nailing Your Media Interview and the Importance of Getting It Right. And there's no doubt that your media interview, the way in which you conduct yourself on camera, whether it be behind a microphone in a radio studio, perhaps you're talking to a print reporter, or perhaps you're involved in a podcast, the way in which you handle yourself is absolutely important. And I want to go back a step and just explain something to you in broad terms, give you a feel for where we're at in terms of 6 steps to free media publicity right now. So if we go right back to the start, what we learnt was how the media works, how the media gets what it wants, how you can get what you want from the media, which effectively is all about utilising the media to your advantage. You also learnt what made a news story, and that is so important. There's no question about that. You've got to understand what a news story is. You then understood how to identify a story idea within your business, which is absolutely key. I mean, thousands of businesses around the world, hundreds of thousands of them, probably maybe even millions of them, have stories that the media would be interested in, but they don't know because they don't know how to identify those story ideas. So you learnt that in detail, which was wonderful. We then spoke about how to communicate those stories to the media, and we do that fundamentally through a media release. So we went through the process of how to set your media release up, and then how to write your media release, and then how to send your media release out. Now that is really, really important as well. So once you've done that, what will happen is the media will contact you for an interview, whether it be television, radio, print, a podcast perhaps. They will contact you. And when they contact you, you need to be prepared. There is just no question about that. You must be prepared. Otherwise, all the work you've done, all of the knowledge you've gained, and all the time that you've spent on writing your media release and sending it out, crafting it well, and then taking the phone call, it's wasted. The next step, nailing your media interview, is key. Now, this guy here, if I were coaching him, I would first and foremost say, well done, you look the part. That's really, really important. He's being interviewed by a female journalist. There's a camera there, there's a cameraman. So he has a golden opportunity to get his message across, and he needs to have prepared for that interview so that he does not waste that interview. That's important. It might be that you're behind a microphone on a radio show. Now, if that's the case, then you've got an opportunity to talk even more about your products and services and your thoughts and your brand and whatever's on your mind, because generally when you're on a radio show, you've got more time. You're not there for 3 or 4 minutes. Quite often you're there for half an hour perhaps. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later on in one of the other chapters. Or it may be that you are discussing your story with a print reporter. Now, if you're doing that, the principle is the same. The goal is to prepare for your media interview and make sure that you nail your media interview. I mentioned podcasts earlier. It may be that you've been invited on a podcast. Now, that's just brilliant because that's just free publicity. Here we come, provided it doesn't sound like an obvious ad or a commercial, but there you are, talking about your products or services or your thoughts or an issue that you're tackling or whatever it might be. Free media publicity. Now, we could ramp it up a bit more, and perhaps you're being interviewed by someone on a live television program, perhaps, and yes, the pressure is mounting there. You need to make sure that you absolutely nail that interview, because if it's live, for example, there's no going back. And so if I were coaching you for a live interview, then we would be preparing for that interview, and we would do a lot of preparation, making sure that you get your points across and making sure that you are totally ready for that experience. There's no doubt about that. You do not want to waste the opportunity. You do not want to waste that opportunity that you have been given to promote yourself, your brand, your products, your services, yourself as a thought leader or as an expert, or perhaps as a professional, whatever it may be. You've been given a golden opportunity to promote all of those facets of your business and yourself, and therefore you do not want to waste it. No doubt about that. I want to make this perfectly clear. The purpose of the media interview is to communicate a message that has been well crafted, carefully thought out, and when delivered will impact those watching, reading, or listening. That is the purpose of your media interview. Now, this is important. A number of people will, I don't like to say fail, but a number of people will not get the result they wanted. And there are a number of reasons, but fundamentally I've put down 4. So one of them obviously is that you are nervous and therefore you don't get your message across. You might mumble, you might stumble, there may be a whole range of things that occur as a result of you being nervous. But the key here is to understand that if you prepare, the nerves will diminish. So the second reason that your interview is not going as well as you might like is that you didn't prepare. It's a lack of preparation. Now, if you prepare, your nerves will diminish, as I say, and that is really important. Another reason that your interview may not go as well as you would like is that you start to drift off message. So you've prepared some messages, or in this case, you haven't prepared any messages, and so therefore, when you're answering your question, you start to talk about things that are superfluous, that aren't important. They're not on message. They're not key to the story that you are promoting. And the reason that happens is because you haven't prepared, and then, of course, you're nervous. So they all tie together. You understand what I mean? They all tie together. The other thing that can happen is you react to the reporter's questions. Now, what I mean by that is it may be that the reporter is pushing you on a particular issue and you feel a bit uncomfortable. So therefore you don't know what to do because, again, you haven't prepared, you haven't anticipated the questions. And we'll talk more about that in another chapter. But again, it is fundamentally a lack of preparation. That is what it is, and that is what this module is all about. The reporter's goal is to get a story with an angle, something that their audience will be interested in, whether it be TV, radio, or print, or a podcast. That is the reporter's goal. Make no mistake, that's all they want. That's all they want. They are busy. They're working on the next story and the next story and the next story. So don't think you're anything special. You are just one in a production line. But the reporter's goal is a story with an angle, something their audience will be interested in. Now, your goal is you want to get your message, your story, your idea across. That is your goal. It is as simple as that. It is as simple as that. And we'll talk more about that in following chapters. Now, in a general sense, this is what I'd like to discuss in this module. Who is interviewing who? Now, you're probably thinking, what does that mean? Well, hang about for the next chapter and I'll explain that to you. Preparation, we've spoken about it in a general sense. I want to be more specific. Crafting your message. So we're really starting to get really specific and really detailed about the preparation. So the crafting of your message will make more sense when we've done preparation, and the preparation will make more sense when we've done who is interviewing who. All of that will make sense. And what I'd also like to do is I'd like to speak about the difference between a television, a radio, a print, and a podcast interview. There are subtle differences. There's no doubt about that. There are subtle differences, and I want to cover those subtle differences. I'm really, really excited that you're here with me. This is a really important module. There's no question about that. All of these chapters are really important, and there's so much to talk about when it comes to preparing for your media interview. We're going to cover some very, very significant points that are going to help you immeasurably when you next step in front of a camera, behind a microphone, sit alongside a print reporter, or perhaps sit behind a microphone for a podcast. I'm really excited about this. So in this module, you'll gain all of the tools you need to make sure that you are fully prepared when you're in front of the media to gain maximum coverage.